Everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel here. I am Jessica and Harris, and we are back, you guys, with a brand new video. Let's get it, let's go. So, for those of you who don't know, this channel is all about helping you to redefine what's possible with God in the midst of your faith walk journey. That being said, I'm also the founder of Ignite Your Glow, which is a whole movement dedicated for women in faith who are ready to amplify their voice and walk boldly in their God given purpose. I'm also a dynamic speaker, a podcast host of Ignite Your Glow, as well as the mom to three incredible kids. And I am just inviting you guys into the room. So, as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell above as well so you can be notified when the next video gets ready to be dropped. So, y'all already know from the last couple of videos I did over this weekend that we are in a new challenge, you guys. Yes. So, happy Monday. And today's challenge is all about overcoming autopilot. Listen, if you have ever been in that space where you're feeling stuck in the mud, stuck in the yuck, gruck, and grime of just everything, y'all. Been there, done that, and it's not fun. But today's conversation, I feel like, is going to be one that helps us to really come out of that space, especially because today we're talking about the concept of awareness. Now, for those of you who know what awareness is, you get it, is to be aware of something. But I wouldn't be right if I didn't actually look up the actual definition of awareness. So I am going to pull it up now and see what it says. So, to have awareness is to have knowledge or perception of a situation or fact, is concerned about or well informed interest in a particular situation or development. In philosophy and psychology, awareness is considered to be the perception or knowledge of something. So, when we want to think about the concept, right, of being stuck or even being on autopilot, we have to understand that there needs to be a level of awareness that we have to know about ourselves in order to even begin to do the work. Meaning, if you don't know that's where you are right now, how can you actually overcome something that you don't realize is actually a problem? Now, for those of you who watched my videos this weekend, then you already know that I asked you guys to do what? Do some journaling. And here's why. Because when you're able to journal, you're actually able to uncover some areas, right, that may seem quote unquote hidden to you before. And now you're able to really come into the revelation of what's going on. I believe, personally speaking, that when you journal, it allows you to really declutter your mind. So this way you can begin seeing things from a different perspective. Now, for those of you who chose to journal, you kind of, like on your own. More power to you. I feel like that's honestly super beneficial just because when you're just writing everything that kind of just comes to you, you're really able to flush out more details. That's my perspective. But for the sake of this particular challenge, I did give out two particular journal prompts. And the reason why I did these prompts was because I wanted people to really have an opportunity to be guided, especially if they're the type of person who's like, I don't write, so I don't really know what to write about. And I understand that part because maybe, in the midst of how you're feeling, you don't have anything really that's coming to mind for you to write about. So it kind of feels like, eh, oh, okay, right? So I get it. So I did actually offer in the email, I think it was like five or six different prompts, matter of fact. And the reason why I offered so many was so that way, if you did have like, different areas within your own personal life that you felt like you needed to uncover, that you would then have the tools and the resources to be able to do that. So you guys see me moving around a little bit. That's because I'm actually trying to go back to the very email that I was just at, really just to give you guys further information essentially, right, regarding that part. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pull up the email right quick and give you guys really just a quick snippet on what some of the questions were like. So for those of you who were like, listen, I didn't get a chance to do the challenge questions yesterday, but I really want to do them today as we kickstart this challenge. Let's go. You didn't miss anything. Today is still day numero uno, so you're right on track. So one of the questions was identifying what emotions, right, come up when you begin to think about the pace of the life that you're living right now. Identifying areas where you feel in your life may be a little bit stagnant, whether that's personally, spiritually, professionally, whatever the case is for you. Even identifying like habits and mindsets, right, that don't serve you, what's draining you, and just lessons overall that you may have been able to bear witness unto. So, those are just some of the prompts in general that we were able to really bring to you yesterday, just to help you to really declutter and to essentially unwind, right, whatever was going on with you. Now, for those of you who have been able to be decluttered and you're like, listen, I did the work, I'm excited to start, because there's something powerful. I really do believe that when we can do the work ahead of time, it allows us to come in with a fresh perspective. It allows us to come in with a fresh mind. And now our thought process can not only think about what's taking place, but we have the clarity to receive also what we need to receive in the process. So that is what I'm super excited about. So for those of you who are like, okay, I get it, I get it, I get it, let's begin. I got you. So, when we think about the concept of awareness, right, we want to really understand that this is where the transformation really begins, right? Yes, you've done the work with the journaling, and now you're like, okay, I understand there's some areas, right, that have been kind of highlighted. But what can I do about this? Well, before I touch there, let's identify the reasons why awareness is something that we need in general, period, right? Hence the conversation for today. So, the reason why I wanted to really start off with the concept of awareness is because if you don't have a level of awareness, if you don't have that perception to even know that something is wrong, you're really not going to know where to begin. See, for some people, they could be thinking that their feeling right now is like, oh, I'm not motivated. Oh, I don't feel ambitious. Oh, I'm not on track. And the reality is that it may not necessarily be that, right? You being stuck may honestly be something more internal versus something that's external. But because we do see some of the external aspects or factors take place in our life, it's easy to default and assume that that could be the area. That's why it's important to do the inner work, the heart work, right? Even just doing the mental checkups, right? Checking in like, hey, like, are we good this week? Like, are we okay? Has some stuff taken place that maybe we need to pause on, or maybe we need to reassess so we can see where we are? When we have that level of awareness about ourselves, we can move differently, right? And we respond differently, not only to other people, but we treat ourselves differently. Now, one of the examples that came to mind when I was writing this out was the concept of walking into a house but with dirty shoes on. Now, initially when I was writing this out, I was thinking of an adult who kind of walks into a new house but they don't realize it. But then the idea was like even children. And I'm like, you know what? We can use either or. So whether you look at it from a child's perspective or from an adult's perspective, you get home, you're tired, you're exhausted, and you're walking in your house and you don't realize that what you're walking into in the house is really muddy steps that are on your shoes. Why? Because maybe you didn't realize that your shoes were tracking dirt the entire time. Now, for those of you who may get in the comments, well, why are your shoes on in the house? Yada, yada, X, Y, and Z. Listen, we are using an example here from my imagination. Please walk with me in the example here. But anyways, right? Understanding that concept that you could easily be tracking in something on your shoes. Like I've done it, right? I've walked in the house and I'm looking like, where all that dirt just come from? And then I've looked down like, oh my gosh, that's from my shoes, right? The same thing when it snows outside, when it's rainy outside. Sometimes you don't realize that the puddle that you're seeing behind you is like, yo, where did these puddles come from? Oh my gosh, my shoes are wet. Wow, I had no idea that I was tracking that through the house, right? So sometimes that happens, right? And you don't know it because you're not thinking about it. You're not looking down at your feet as you're walking. You're just walking to get in the house, to go to the kitchen, to go to the living room, right? To go to the bedroom, to change, whatever the case is. So you may be unaware that something's actually tracking as you're walking. And I feel like that's the same thing for us. Like when you're on autopilot, you're not realizing that there's stuff, that there's residue of how you're feeling kind of just moving about with you in the midst of that because you're unaware of it. And I feel like it's at the point where you begin to stop and you pause and there's an acknowledgement of it. Now, the acknowledgement can come from either people saying, hey, Jess, there's some stuff on your shoes there. I think it's getting on the floors. And now you're able to be like, oh, wait, hold on, pause, right? Or it could be even yourself who looks down and you're like, hold on. Hey, I got some stuff on my feet, right? So I feel like in those moments when you begin to pause and you're able to identify that there is something there, then you begin the work of doing the awareness. It's the acknowledgement, right? That comes first. And that's the same thing that you did with the journaling yesterday. When you were able to go through those questions, you were able to identify areas in your life where you're like, okay, I have been kind of feeling stuck here. Or, okay, this is an area that kind of has been bothersome here, or there was something that was taking place over here that I have now been able to identify. Or maybe you're right, I've seen where the motivation just hasn't been where I needed it to be in this particular area, or maybe there's been some fatigue here. So now you're able to come into this acknowledgement, right, of what's going on. And when you go from that awareness, because now you know what it is, and you can acknowledge, hey, there is a problem, there is something taking place, there is something that needs to be addressed here, there is something that needs to be either changed, shifted, corrected, adjusted, right? Whatever the case may be for you. My bad, y'all. My phone is buzzing apparently uncontrollably right now. But the reason why I'm bringing that up to you is because I really want you to understand that when we can begin to see, right, what is happening before us and we can acknowledge it, it's now saying in our minds that, okay, this is a problem and I need to pay attention to it. It's no longer just something that gets ignored. It's no longer just like the dirt that's kind of like under your nose when you drink a glass of milk, right? It's now something that you have to pay attention to. And because you now have the awareness of it, you can now acknowledge the issue. And the beauty in being able to acknowledge a problem is that now you can actually begin to remedy a situation, right? You can begin to address the issue. So for some people, you may not think that you being on autopilot is a problem because you're like, listen, I do my job day to day. I get up, I do X, I take care of the kids, I go home, I sleep, yada, yada, and I'm back in this cycle. But you don't realize sometimes that maybe the inner side of you that is feeling like I'm depressed, I'm sad, or feeling as though, there's nothing else that's really out here for me, or you're lacking in purpose, you're lacking in drive, is really because there's some other turmoil that's taking place. Now, not all of it I'm gonna say is turmoil, because I think it was, I don't know if it was my pastor or a pastor I watched on TV yesterday, but one of them made like a valid point that sometimes you need to be able to have like Holy Spirit kind of bring forth this like resistance in your life to really get you to get uncomfortable so you can notice what's going on. And I feel like sometimes we do need that boost, right? I've had moments where I've needed that boost where, you get complacent in a situation. You're like, well, whatever, it is what it is. Like, this is just a situation. And all of a sudden you start feeling irritated and you're looking like, okay, what is happening here? And God is like, I need you to, like, yo, you can't get stuck here. You got to get up, you got to move, you got to make some movements, you got to do something, right? So, and I know that's kind of like, it's on topic, but it's not the course that I was going to go with it, but it is what comes to mind. And I'm bringing all of these aspects up because oftentimes we do need that push. So as we're acknowledging what's taking place, we have to acknowledge the problem in a way where we can fix it. Because it's one thing to look at it and be like, oh, my shoes are dirty. Oh, that's unfortunate. And then you keep walking with the same shoes on versus acknowledging, wow, my shoes are dirty. And then you take them off and then you go place them somewhere else because now you've identified the problem and you're trying to mediate it, right? You're trying to fix it. I don't know if it's mediate or remediate. Listen, y'all can go look it up, right? But you go to fix the problem. And because now you're identifying the areas of the problem, you're now going for a solution because putting the shoes away isn't going to fix the problem. Taking them off isn't going to fix the house that's being dirty now, but now you got to do the work to clean it. So when you can begin to come full circle of not just identifying what's going on for burning you out or making you feel as though you're on autopilot or making you feel as though you lack motivation, but now you have to identify, okay, God, this is the area that it's having it in. I need you to come in because now you can acknowledge, like, okay, this is the problem, and I need God to come in with a solution, or I need God to help me to arrest the spirit of fear or the spirit of anxiety that's causing me to be stuck in this place because it it's making me fearful to step out on faith. You have to begin to ask God these questions and explore what are the solutions to this problem. With shoes, it's simple. Get a mop, right? And clean the floors. Get a broom and dust the sand, the dirt, whatever the case is. But for other areas in our lives, it may have to be through prayer. It may have to be through fasting, right? It may have to be through getting a coach, getting a mentor. It may have to be through going to therapy. It may have to be through doing some inner work. Sometimes the work that we need to do within ourselves is just a matter of acknowledging, like, yo, I'm sad because such and such happened. And it's like, okay, you're sad. It's okay to be sad, but you also don't have to stay there, right? And this, again, I'm going to say that very lightly because everybody's situation is different, which is why I'm not pinpointing a specific situation for that statement. But I'm using that concept because I can relate to being sad about things in my life and looking like, God, I'm sad about X, Y, and Z. But I know for me, I need to keep pressing forward because in order for me to get to where I'm headed, I can't allow how I feel today to keep me from getting to the place that I need to be. So that's my perspective of why I say that particular statement. But I'm giving you that understanding that we, in general, as believers, as humans, listen, as mothers, right? I'm not a wife yet, but those who are wives, right? Those who are, even those who are simply just leaders, right? Within their community, leaders at their jobs. Like there's this role, there's this responsibility, right? That you still carry. So because of the role and the responsibility that you carry, you can't necessarily just tap out and be done because there's still more. There's still more. There's a woman that I had listened to earlier this week, and she made such a beautiful comment in her video. I wish I need to like write down these videos, y'all. I'll at some point drop videos on the post or something about the different ones that I've been watching lately. But she made a comment that said that as long as she was still alive, there was still fight in her. She was like, as long as God wakes me up this morning, there is still fight inside of me. And I thought that that statement was so powerful, more so because of what she had been through, what she was going through at that season of her life that she was describing, right? She was talking about being homeless, living under a bridge, and just all this stuff that had taken place. But now she's a multimillionaire, offset to become yeah, she moving in the real estate industry. So just understanding that concept, Terica, there we go. It's Terica. I don't want to mess up the last part of her name, but it's Terica. So just understanding like what she had gone through, what it was that she had experienced, and just listening and just honing in that when she says, y'all, when I got to that point, I had to understand that I'm here, so I'm gonna keep fighting. Some of us in general need to like get into ourselves, like in our hearts and bring out the fight that's inside of us and bring out the fight that's within us. And that fight isn't just the fight of the internal of ourselves, but I'm talking about the fight of even using the word of God, the truth of what he has spoken and what he has said about us. Because when we can use his words to fight the battles that we're going through, we have to also remember that not every battle that we face is carnal. Just because you feeling sad and stuff like that doesn't mean that it's just sadness, because there are times, right, where a spiritual aspect comes into play here, right? The enemy does what? Lie, kill, and destroy. That's what his plans are. But God gives life more abundantly. So we can't be ignorant to the schemes and the tactics of the enemy. We can't be ignorant to how one day I was just fine and all of a sudden I'm feeling like I'm depressed. Like, I don't claim that. No, 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 right? But that's what I mean. That's why awareness is so important. That's why doing the work is so important, because you have to be able to call that thing out. You have to be able to recognize, is it you or is it something else? And until you can discern the difference, you're going to be sitting there cruising, thinking like, oh, I'm just, not realizing that other elements are at play. And that's why it's so important in general to really just be spiritually aware, spiritually keen to what's taking place. And how do you do that? By staying in your word, by being connected with God, by having a relationship with him, by really just staying in prayer, y'all. Like, it's so important. And I say all of this because in the season right that we're in right now, we know that there's this heightened intensity when it comes to spiritual warfare. We know that there's all this extra stuff and all this foolishness and nonsense, but we know what the word of God says in Luke 10:19 as well, right? that scorpions and serpents will do what? Trample, that we will trample them under our feet. So, yes, the enemy is under our feet. I believe that wholeheartedly. But we have to understand that it is easy for something to come upon us, whether it's through social media, conversations, things that you watch, things that you do, what you're entertaining, X, Y, and Z. There's so many factors at play here. So that's why I feel like having a clean spirit, a clean heart, isn't just us saying it. It's not just us declaring it, but it's also paying attention to our own actions. It's paying attention to our own motives, right? It's paying attention to what we invite in, to what we entertain, like I just said earlier, right? So when we can have an understanding of all of those pieces, we can move differently in our assessments, not only of ourselves, but even around those that are around us. Now, speaking of assessments, I want to go ahead and introduce to you guys what I thought was really going to be something that was necessary. Um, and this is going to be the SWOT analysis that I wanted to introduce to you guys. Now, before I bring forth the SWOT analysis, actually, no, I'm going to do the SWOT analysis and I'm going to curve back to that afterwards. Yeah, because I was going to mention something else, but I think the SWOT analysis is a good segue right here. So, the SWOT analysis, we're actually going to dive into this much more further tomorrow in tomorrow's video for day number 2. But I wanted to give you the introduction of it today because I want you for yourself. You don't need to share it with me. You don't need to send me an email. You can send me an email if you want to, like you're more than welcome to, but this isn't required. This is for you to have your level of awareness, right? Because I want you to see where you are in the midst. Now, for those of you who are aware of SWOT analysis, a lot of business owners do this when it comes to market research. A lot of service industries do this when it comes to them determining what new services or products that they could be putting into the market, and more so understanding like if I place this out here, what is it? Is it going to be like a viable situation? Viable may not be the right word, but just using that for context, right? So it's big on business, but you can also use this in your own personal journeys as well. And you can do this periodically throughout the year, just to do your own check-ins. I know some people do this for their businesses when it comes to their team members, right? To identify where their teams are at the beginning of the year and then again halfway through or even at the end of the year as well. So this is definitely a tool that is extremely beneficial. But for those of you who don't know what this is, and you're like, okay, what is this going to do? It's an opportunity to help you grow and to see where growth is. This is an area where you're really going to be able to take your level of awareness into a deeper area. So, for starters, the S in SWOT stands for strengths. Number not number 2, but W stands for weaknesses, O stands for opportunities, and T stands for threats. Now, the reason why this is broken down this way is because it's giving you kind of like that 4 sector model. I think about the T model that we used to have in school with like the T charts, kind of. I know the T charts did more like 2 columns, but think of like the long vertical line more so the one in the middle. Like the coordinates, right? So when we think about these areas, we want to think about what they entail. So if I look at my strengths, I'm thinking about what am I naturally good at? I'm thinking about what am I working on right now within myself. For some people, that could be patience, creativity, abilities, X, Y, and Z. When we think about our weaknesses, right, we want to be thinking about areas that we may be struggling in. If you knew that you were stuck in your mental state, it may be related to depression, right? It could be, and I don't want to even claim it on nobody. So it could just be related to that you're being sad. But I know depression's a real thing, so that's why I'm mentioning it. But even it could be a matter of you being emotional. Maybe you just had a breakup recently, right? And you're down in the dumps about it. Or maybe there's just some things that didn't go the way you anticipated just yet, right? So whatever the case is, you can begin to identify those areas, right? It could be lack of boundaries. For some people, it could be that you're always people pleasing. And that can be a weakness that you're realizing in you because you're like, honestly, I'm just burnt out. I'm over it. I'm tired because everybody's asking me to do something and I'm always saying yes. And you're saying yes because you don't have the structured boundaries that you need. That's an area that you can label as a weakness for now. And then there's areas where we begin to identify opportunities, right? And we think about, okay, well, what doors are open for us, right? Or what doors could potentially be open if we made some changes, right? Within ourselves, within our habits. And then that gives you really the opportunity to explore, right? Because sometimes we think about opportunities and we're limited limiting ourselves to where we are, but I want you to take the blinders off. What if you did make changes, right? What are opportunities that could then be open to you that may not be quote unquote open to you at this moment? And I feel as though when you can do that, you can really uncover even more hidden truths about yourself and about what it is that you're capable of doing. And lastly, I want to round it off with what are the threat assessments? Now, threat assessments can be like external pressures. Sometimes they're your habits, things that you're doing that you know you shouldn't be doing. They could be your limiting belief system. For some people, it's the concept of self sabotage, right? And so much more. So, really just understanding what is it that's beginning to try to block your progress here? What is trying to cause you to be like, mm-mm, I can't do it? And I want to give you guys an example of this, but honestly, I'm pressed for time. So, what I'm going to do instead is give you guys this information here, right? I'm gonna let it sit in this video. I'm gonna let you re-watch this video. That's what I'm gonna encourage you to do is re-watch it and really allow it to sink in. And then what I'm gonna do is offer the example that I have here in the email that I'm gonna drop this evening. And then this evening, you're gonna be able to also get like an idea of how to structure your own SWOT analysis. So this way, come tomorrow, we can really break this down more heavily and not like super intense, but really just identifying this as like, you know, what an avatar, like I'll create a person and stuff like that for you guys and really kind of go over this more in depth. But for tonight, I want to encourage you to do your own. So this way, when you do come back tomorrow for day 2 of the challenge, you can really begin to think like, that's a really good way of being able to turn things around. I'm a big believer in changing our weaknesses into our strengths. So we'll be identifying areas and ways in which we're able to do that as well. So those are some of our talking points for today. I'm super pumped. I'm very excited about how all of this is getting ready to work out for you guys. And I just want to encourage you, right? If you haven't already done so, join the email list today. This way you can get the inside scoop on what we're doing within this challenge. I'm pumped. I'm excited. The newsletter I know normally goes out on Mondays. Today is going to be a bit of a delay on the newsletter just because we do have the challenge out right now. So I'm going to get the newsletter sent out to you guys tomorrow, and that'll have all the remaining details for this week and what's up ahead. So peace and blessings to each and every one of you guys. Again, I gotta go, but I will be back tonight with the pieces that y'all need. So peace and blessings. And as always, don't forget